encourage your soul, enlighten your mind, and empower your faith. This is the Light Network.
You know what time it is, no matter where you've been. So let's do it again. Listen up and let the sun shine in. We've got soul training. Time to practice what you preach. Ooh, yeah. Yes, we do. We've got soul training.
And here's Daniel, Alan, and Joe.
Hey, I was wondering, have y'all heard that there's an email going around that's out of Washington, D.C., that wanting to know what are 5 things certain employees did last week? Have y'all heard that? Or is it just me?
That, yeah.
You heard that happening?
Yeah, I heard that.
Okay. Let's make a spiritual soul training application here. What 5 things do you think soul training has done the last 5 years? Go. Don't think about it.
Ooh, we've reached, what did I say the other day? 100 countries, something like that?
A lot of countries.
There's one.
One planet.
Yeah, we've got Earth. That's right.
We got Earth knocked out.
So we've got a lot of countries. That's one. We've got every continent. People have listened to us, besides Antarctica.
Okay.
We've got, we're part of the Light Network now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 3. 4, we just did our first live in-studio audience type of episode.
Yeah, so that released 2 weeks ago, right?
Yes. And then 5. What's 5? Oh, I did the first 4. Come on, guys.
I heard if you don't respond, you'll get fired. So, you better come on, Joe.
Well, hopefully we have enriched people's spiritual lives as they have gone on this journey with us for how many years now?
5.
Like 5 years.
Perhaps we've enlightened them on the meaning of life even.
Wow, you got in my notes again. I can tell. We're going to segue.
If not yet, we hope to do that today.
So really we could add, we could do more than 5, but I just wanted to see if you all reacted or felt overwhelmed like some people are by responding to an email.
Yeah, and we should let the listener know. Daniel and I, and maybe even Alan, we don't know what Alan's going to say when we kick off these episodes. I don't think you know. I think you just open your mouth and whatever comes out happens to us.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, I don't... I'm self-diagnosed attention deficit, so I never know.
Well,
sometimes.
He likes to keep us off guard.
He does.
That's. I don't really have a dad joke for that. I thought I could pick up one, but I just wanted to. Some people are like really worked up about the emails and stuff. But you all handled it well. You didn't panic. You just did it, and so we'll get to keep our jobs then. Hopefully, then that's good. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've been doing a fair job. We haven't missed a release date in 5 years.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
There's 6 things that we've done.
Yeah. Well, the only requirement was to respond, and that's what but then you all have done that, so we've done that.
Okay.
So that's good. I didn't give you one, but that's good. We were in.
And I think we're the world's only Christian podcast with an annual Halloween show.
That's true, too. And those are always my favorite of the year. I love those.
Really?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
That's my favorite.
That's
ghoul training on Halloween.
Where all ghouls matter.
That's exactly right.
Well, y'all have given us the meaning of soul training, but we're going to segue into the meaning of life. That's what we're going to strive to answer. What is the meaning of life is the question. And then I'll punt to one of you all, but I guess for me, how I would boil this down is a few years ago, I discovered a guy that most everybody knows, Simon Sinek. He's been around for a while. You don't know Simon Sinek?
I don't know Simon.
You know about Simon? Wow.
I don't,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, now I feel really smart. Well, there's this guy named Simon Sinek, and
is he cynical?
No, he's not. He does a lot of professional sales coaching and motivational speaking, but he came up with the phrase of "What's your why?" I don't know if I should attribute that to him, but that's part of one of his TED Talks. And then he's grown. I mean, he's always on these podcasts and things that I follow. But the point is, it really challenged me to think about that little simple question. What is your why? WHY. What is your why? So us as humans, us as Christians, what is our why? What is our meaning? Why do we get up every day? What are we striving to accomplish? What are we focused on? So we're going to try to tackle that and what is the meaning of life? What is our why as humans?
This is a big question, one that I think's been pondered since creation, and there's kind of two roads you can look at. You can look at the religious road of this, or you can look at the secular, I guess, way folks would look at the meaning of life. And so in our pregame discussion, we talked, well, we could easily solve this problem in like 2 minutes if we went strictly the religious route. But I think it's worth looking at what the world says the meaning of life is. And so, Daniel, you, like any good techie, you typed into AI and AI spit out something. What is the artificial intelligence meaning of life answer?
Isn't that just like the most modern thing ever? We ask maybe the most ancient philosophical question there is: what is the meaning of life? And so I go to ChatGPT and ask what it has to say. And here's what it told me. The meaning of life is one of the biggest philosophical questions, and it really depends on how you look at it. Well, that's deep, right? Some people find meaning through relationships, love, and human connection. Others see it in personal growth, creativity, or pursuing knowledge. Some find it in spirituality, religion, or serving a greater cause. From a scientific perspective, life is about survival, evolution, and the continuation of consciousness. But on a personal level, the meaning is something we create for ourselves, whether through experiences, passions, or the impact we have on others. What does it mean to you? So that's what ChatGPT told me.
So you think it's an individual response, of course, then? I mean, not a corporate?
Okay, so that's part of the... There's some underlying questions that we have to ask before we can even accurately answer what is the meaning of life. And that is, who gets to assign meaning? If you're going from some sort of secularist viewpoint, if there is a creator, then obviously he gets to assign the meaning of his creation, right? But if you don't believe there's a creator, then this question becomes much more complicated, because who gets to decide what is the meaning of life? Like you said, is it an individual thing? Does each individual get to decide what gives my life meaning, what gives your life meaning, and then it's all entirely subjective? Or is it a thing where society, the collective, all of the human species, we get together and kind of assign meaning to life? Or does it happen from a scientific evolutionist type standpoint? That meaning to life is just going to be the propagation of the species, right? So if you fail to produce offspring, like evolutionary wise, your job is to produce kids and die, right? You pass on your genes, and that's kind of what life is ultimately all about for the evolutionist. I feel it's kind of empty.
Yeah, but even so, why does that matter? If you're just thinking, if you think there's no God, well, then who cares if you pass your genes? What difference does it make?
And I'm making a difference to you.
Right.
Right.
And that's ultimately, whenever you're looking around out there on the internet, if you start Googling the meaning of life, you start seeing the worldly point of view is there is no meaning of life. It's whatever you make of it.
It's where you find meaning. That's what they're going to tell you.
That's a scary thing, because what if someone's out there and they're struggling, they don't believe that they have that value.
Yeah.
They're not going to believe their life is meaningful, and that's going to lead to dark things.
And it's shifting sand. If you ask a kid what gives their life meaning, they might say, I don't know, they might find meaning in having the highest score in the latest video game or something like that. That's really, but then that achievement when you're a certain age, later on you look back and, well, you're not that doesn't provide fulfillment for you any longer. You got to have something else.
Yeah, and looking around, there's some others, let me pull it up right fast. Other views of the meaning of life are, I guess, materialism. How much stuff can I accumulate?
Yeah, I think
Or-
that's part of a subset of what I might call the keeping score approach. That you got the way you know you win is you have a high enough score, and one of the ways that you can keep score is by the money that you make. You know how many material goods you're able to accumulate. There's other ways to keep score too. You know, like we might keep score by fame or the opinions of other people, maybe success in our field, whatever.
followers on social media.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those, I think, when those things, you start to set up kind of a dangerous path, because that's when you're feeding on the worldly, I guess, appreciation, either through things that's sitting around in your garage or in your car or in your home, or if that's where you get your fulfillment, then you're going to be lonely. And you mentioned kids a few minutes ago. I see a lot of, middle school and high school kids a lot, and it's scary that so many. I'm going to use a kind of a country phrase, but have been turned loose just on their phones, and our social media or all those things. And then, like Joe said, if you're constantly focused on how many likes you're going to get on Facebook, early on, I've tried to detox a little bit, but I can remember there's been years since when I joined the Facebook community that you post things and you can't help, but you do look at the comments, you do look at the likes, and then it kind of releases kind of some feel-good chemicals, and then you kind of get used to that. And then I kind of transfer that to what you said about society, or celebrities. The only thing I'll share, and this is from a celebrity standpoint, but most everybody knows who Elvis Presley.
I thought you were speaking as an authority, as a celebrity.
No, not me. No,
From a celebrity's.
Nobody knows or cares who I am.
Oh, you are one of the hosts of the Soul Training Podcast.
Yeah.
Come on.
We're worldwide, baby.
We are, but I haven't gotten an email from anybody or anything asking me what I did last week. But Elvis Presley, this kind of goes back to finding things. Ralph Gilmore, if some of our folks hopefully will know Ralph Gilmore, but he talked about this very same thing when he held a meeting here for us. He just talked about how many different chemicals were found in Elvis's body when he passed away. And the point is that everything I've found ranges from 8 different prescription drugs to 14. I can't remember what Dr. Gilmore shared, but at the end of the day, it was a lot of stuff. And what does that have to do with us and the meaning of life? Is that even you would look at Elvis, who had, like Solomon, could think it and could buy it and could have it, but yet it still wasn't enough, because he was searching for something to give him peace. And even Solomon, we'll talk about Ecclesiastes. I mean, you think about what he had access to, and he says that it's all empty, it's all vanity. So, and then I'm switching to Acts 17, but the Stoic philosophers and the Epicureans, they had kind of that different take on life, that meaning was only found in pleasures. Both of those intellectual groups things were only found in things and pleasures, and not in the one true living God. But Paul was trying to share that with them.
Yeah, people feel you can look around and you can see what people are making the meaning of life. You're talking about the philosophers. I feel like nowadays there seems to be a slide amongst some factions that education is the meaning of life, to know more, to have more degrees. Others, like you said, it's money, pleasure, whatever. But I don't know. I feel like there's, among certain factions, are really proud of their education and how they're always in school. I don't know what they're keeping on learning, but
right. Well, and you referenced the Epicureans and the Stoics. These are philosophies that are thousands of years old. People have been searching for that meaning. And you were reading a list a second ago, and I think I cut you off. If you want to finish that,
I don't know what was it. Was it the philosophical views, existentialism?
Yeah, I think so.
So Daniel went to ChatGPT. Well, I did too, and crazy enough, we didn't get the same answer. So our AIs are starting to know us, apparently. But one thing, let's talk about the philosophical views here. Existentialism is life has no inherent meaning, so individuals must create their own purpose. Absurdism is life may have no ultimate meaning, but that doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. And then utilitarianism is the meaning of life is to maximize happiness and reduce suffering. But we were talking about this beforehand, sorry. Like, why reduce suffering? It gets into apologetics if you go back far enough. As why would we want to keep the DNA strand going?
Yeah.
Why? Or why do we want to reduce suffering? Because if there's no God, I don't know why we have empathy and sympathy and things like that.
You know, what's your standard to say that's a worthwhile life?
Yes.
And why is it any more worthwhile than the guy that says, you know, I'm just here. I'm not here for a long time. I'm here for a good time, and I'm gonna do.
Is that an Alan Jones quote?
Was that a line in a... No, I didn't say that.
I don't remember where that's from, but hopefully it's not from something bad.
Daniel's got that tattooed on his back somewhere on his shoulder.
But I mean, like a lot of people think, it's about legacy. You know, you want to leave, you want to be remembered well, and that's important to people. But thinking about legacy, I always think about, it was not that long ago, but there's supposedly like a 13-year-old girl that asked Mike Tyson something about his legacy. Did y'all see that? And so here was his response. He said, "I don't believe in the word legacy. I just believe it's another word for ego. Legacy means absolutely nothing to me. I'm just passing through. I'm going to die, and it's going to be over. Who cares about legacy after that?" And so you got a guy like him of a certain degree of notoriety, and his attitude is, I don't care what comes after me. I don't care what people are going to say about me after I die. I'm not going to have any awareness of that. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, you got to consider that source a little bit.
He's been hit in the head once or twice.
He's been hit in the head a bunch. He's never been known for his rationality either. Well, so we spent quite a bit of time on...
I heard that Mike's kind of a cavalier a little bit. I heard he stole something once from the kitchen. He's a whisk taker.
You know what I heard? I actually heard that he is religious now.
Yeah, wow. Tell us. How's Iron Mike religious?
Well, he punches people in the faith.
Our speech pathologist listeners are not going to appreciate this line of humor.
I'm sorry. He punches people in the faith. I'm sorry. So we need to get to Ecclesiastes, because Ecclesiastes, kind of the whole book is about the meaning of life.
Absolutely.
And so, like you said, we've got Solomon's written Ecclesiastes. Solomon, at this time in history, was the biggest, richest, most powerful. He had it all, right? Like you said, he was more than Elvis of that time period. Whatever he needed, whatever he wanted, it was at his disposal.
It's staggering. It said that during his reign, silver was so common it wasn't even considered valuable.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, and even had people traveling to seek his wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if one of you guys can walk us through a little bit of what he says here, there's 12 chapters, and most of it is, I tried this.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't work.
It didn't work.
I mean, to kind of boil it down, it's such a priceless book in terms of the wisdom that's contained there, because you've got the wisest man that ever lived, except for Jesus. You've got one of the richest men that have ever lived, and he's going on basically his quest for meaning in life, and he takes you through that, through the book of Ecclesiastes, and any area that you could think to try to find meaning, he's done that, and he's done it with an excess you could only dream of. If you think that meaning and value in life is going to be found in riches. Well, he's one of the richest men in the history of the world. He's done that far beyond anything you or I could ever dream. If you think it's going to be pleasures, well, there's no pleasure that he couldn't, that he had to withhold from himself.
Well, he was wise.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean he didn't make some bad decisions.
Yeah. Which, I mean, there's some lessons to be learned from his mistakes as well. He was wise, but he still had made some great mistakes, largely because of the women in his life. He had all these hundreds of wives and concubines, and they led him down paths that were not very wise. He made some really big mistakes because of it. But yeah, so if you think it's going to be in pleasure, he had all the pleasures the world could offer. He had hundreds and hundreds of women at his disposal. He had wealth. If you think, you mentioned academic achievement earlier, he knew more than anybody. Everybody was coming to him for wisdom, wanted to hear what he had to say, and he even makes the statement, of the writing of books, there is no end. Talking about legacy, we mentioned legacy earlier. He becomes frustrated with that idea that here I've built all this stuff, and who's going to inherit it after I'm gone? Who's going to for the person that's built this huge empire, whatever, of any, whether it be a political empire or you're talking about a business empire, you're talking about anything. After you're gone, somebody else is going to inherit it that didn't build it, and that didn't work for it, and maybe they're going to be a custodian of it, and maybe they're not. Maybe they're going to squander it. Maybe they're going to be wise. Maybe they're going to be a fool. And so he feels frustrated at what he's going to be leaving his legacy to. And so ultimately, he concludes that ultimately even being very wise is vanity in terms of empty, because the wise and the fool alike are going to die. They're going to have a similar fate. And so you skip down to the end of the book, and that's the conclusion. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13. If you want to know the meaning of life that he gets to after all of this search, he says, the conclusion when all has been heard is fear God and keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. So you want meaning in life, you want to learn, you can go the long way and make all the mistakes that he made, and probably not even get to test it to the extremes he was able to test it. But he says ultimately it boils down to your relationship with God. Fear God and keep his commandments. Do what God says. That's going to give you meaning in life.
Yeah, English Standard Version says it's the whole duty of man.
Mm-hmm.
And as I listen to you talk, back when I was a kid, there was a phrase for a while that people were used all the time. Been there, got the T-shirt, that kind of thing. And you could kind of say that about Solomon, I think, about anything that we could dream up. As a society, I don't mean
he had all the T-shirts.
Yeah, really, he did. I mean, you're talking about, physical pleasure, financial gain, material achievement, business capital, and just go on and on.
People came from all over the world just to see what it was all about.
Yeah, and I didn't even touch upon the he was a literal walking encyclopedia, and I didn't even get to the education part. But
the admiration, the respect, all of it.
He had a closet full of the T-shirts, but even with all that, he just says it doesn't really matter. And I listen, I read that, and like I listen to you all talking, and I'm going, it forces me to think about my priorities. Isaiah 6 reminds us that our perspective changes when we realize the holiness of God, everything of how we respond to him, but also respond in our life. It changes that's a priority changer for me. Isaiah 6, Ecclesiastes, all those things. But yet I say all that, but then I'm so frail and weak that I fall into in line with the world sometimes of I lose sight of what my the meaning of life is, because you want more, you want to do this more, you want to achieve. You're looking at Social Security, your retirement, and the list goes on and on and on. Things, and so I fall prey to that myself.
Yeah, what advice would you have about staying focused on the real meaning of life?
Well, for me, and you mentioned it's an individual maybe choice as far as meaning of life. I think we have to evaluate our own definitions. But my meaning of life for me is Matthew chapter 9, verses 35 through 38. And I like the subheading in my Bible. It says the compassion of Jesus. Verse 35, Matthew chapter 9. Then Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion for them, because they were weary and scattered, like sheep having no shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest truly is plentiful, and laborers are few. Therefore pray the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. So for me, the advice to keep focus is to be like Jesus. I can't have the level of compassion that Jesus has, but I can have compassion because of Jesus. And so for me, what helps me answer that question is my why, or I find meaning in life of trying to, like Jesus, see people who are challenged and need help, and I try to plug myself in. What can I do to help? If you have a conversation, hey, let's talk about how we can draw encouragement from Psalm 23, Psalm 51. And the list goes on and on. But then we also have an opportunity to help somebody with physical needs. So my meaning of life is to strive to be like Jesus. I will fail, but I at least want to strive.
Well, it's good to have goals.
Yes, good to have goals.
Is that your mic drop moment? Way to go. Well, we're pretty... We've got like just a second if you have anything else. Otherwise, we're pretty well out of time.
Okay. Well, I guess one point of wisdom is, when you don't have anything to say, then stop talking, right?
That's good advice. You get that tattooed on the other shoulder, Daniel.
There we go. Well, if you guys don't have anything else, then, dear listener, let's have your feedback. What do you think about the meaning of life? What has... specifically, I think Alan was kind of talking about some specific things that give his life meaning. And I think broadly, it's not really an individual thing, but rather it's something that God is the one that gets to assign that meaning. And so the way we're going to have that meaning is by aligning ourselves with his instructions. But anyway.
Well, one second.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned Alan's... appreciation of fine writing instruments lately. Alan, what kind of fancy pen you got over there?
It's a fancy pen.
It's called the Gatsby.
The Gatsby. Tell me about the Gatsby,
The
Is
Gatsby is
it a great Gatsby?
No, not really. There are versions.
That's the mediocre.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
this is the mediocre. This is just the Gatsby pen. Actually, one of our members here, one of our dear listeners, John Weaver, who is an expert at just about everything, it seems, but especially in the tool and die industry and about everything from engineering to guns and all those things. He put this together for me. Me and my son, we bought a couple from him, and John Weaver, but I call it the Dreamweaver edition.
Dreamweaver edition.
But it's
it's very, very nice.
It's the Gatsby, but it's
describe it for the people. They can't. This is a audio program. Nobody can see it, so describe.
It's about 5.5 inches long. Has a medium fuselage, and have uses Parker refills, but also you can switch out the Mont Blanc refills if you need to.
The Mont Blanc.
It's kind of a brass, has brass couplings and a brass, end clip top, but it's also complemented by black at the top and at the bottom with acrylic surrounding the fuselage.
And the fuselage is kind of a sparkly green with some gold swirls. I can't speak as elegantly about an ink pen as you can.
I mean, that was a description for an ink pen.
I'm constantly surprised by you.
Are you really?
I really am.
That was the description of a true pen connoisseur.
So did it sound okay?
I'd be like, yeah, this pen writes pretty good. That'd be my description of it. But
it's kind of swirly green in the middle and black on the ends.
It is. It's a medium Parker refill, but you can get the wide stroke or the fine.
Well, our listeners learned two things: the meaning of life and what makes a fine ink pen.
That's right.
I would love to talk to you more about that.
Okay, we'll start a new podcast for ink pen. Daniel,
ink pens with Alan.
Yeah. Can you take us home?
All right. So thank you, dear listener, for letting us be a part of your spiritual journey. And we'd love to hear from you with your feedback and your questions and your suggestions for topics. We want to thank the elders at the South Green Street Church of Christ for making soul training possible. We want to thank our new friends at the Light Network. Although at this point, I don't know that they're new friends. It's been
Several episodes.
Yeah. But our friends there. And we want to recommend their other podcast to you as well if you're looking for something to listen to in between the 2 weeks that Soul Training comes out. And on behalf of Alan and Joe, I'm Daniel. Keep soul training.
Soul training. Time to practice what you preach. Ooh, yeah. Yes, we do. We've got soul training.
To learn more, you can email us at soultrainingpodcast@gmail.com, or you can write to us, P.O. Box 503, Glasgow, Kentucky, 42142. That's Soul Training.